Welcome back to the Mid-Year Mitch YouTube channel. In today's episode, we're pulling the body off the 58 Corvette, and I'm going to show you how to build a body cart for your Corvette. So be sure to stick around. My customer bought this car, I believe out of Ohio. It doesn't have an engine or transmission. It looked like it used to be a hot rod back in the day, and someone was either in the middle of repainting it or they were taking it apart to paint it again because there's no carpet in it, no drivetrain, all the trim is pretty much removed, and it's just kind of mocked up. He's going to make it into a resto mod. He doesn't need the chassis, so he's letting me keep the chassis. So we got to remove the body. Now the good thing is this car is mocked up. So in the deck lid here, there you go. We have a convertible top, but it's just sitting in here. I did find a gas tank that we have to disconnect. The seats, I don't believe, are bolted in. So we need to pull those out. And we need to pull all the body mount bolts out. Now these are a little different than a C2 Corvette, so I printed out this chassis diagram. So one, we know where all the body mounts are, but two, we're able to use these measurements to help us modify that cart. So I believe there's two body mounts in the back here. There's one behind the seat, one by the kick panels. There's some in the middle of the tunnel, and then the core support has one. I believe that's all. We got to pull the column out. Let's try to remove all the weight. I think the gauge cluster, the gauge cluster is just sitting in here. Seats, top. We'll try to remove all the weight that we can to make this as easy as a process as possible. Now I did do a video walking around looking at the quality of the paint. It does look a little different. We have some more intense lights here. I think it's this side. There's a little bit of a seam. The seam is starting to show between the top part of the body and the bottom. So we got to be careful about that. C1s are weird. They also don't have a lot of steel in the body, where a C2 and a C3 Corvette have a big chunk of steel down here for the rocker. Under here is all steel. You can put a hook there and pick these up. I've seen guys make a radius template and pick them up here, which is where they originally were picked up. I've seen guys hook up to the seatbelt mounts and some of the body mounts and pick them up that way. I've also seen people use two-post lift and put a board under here and pick up the body. There is a reinforcement of aluminum. Oh yeah, we got a big old scratch there. There's a reinforcement of aluminum down here and a couple layers of fiberglass, so you can use a normal lift rig like you would a C2 or C3, which I believe that is what we're gonna do. We're gonna move it probably further forward and try to pick it up there with my H-frame that I use to pick up car bodies. We'll try that technique, and we'll take the hood off and we'll put a strap on the core support. We'll turn the body sideways, pick it up, roll the chassis out, and put the cart underneath it. So now with this thing on skates, we can get under here a little easier. It looks like somebody kind of booger welded a new battery tray on it. And there's also a newer transmission cross member in here. So I think somebody was trying to get this thing going again. You can see where they torched out the old part of the chassis, where they cut some bigger windows for the exhaust, and it really smells like bad gas under here. So I'm excited about that. And it looks like this thing had been painted a couple times. Possibly a turquoise red. Not really sure, but back to the main point. There's a body mount here, so I guess they just put a nut on one side and a bolt on the other. So we'll have to hold on to the other side. There's no cage nuts like C2s. Seems fine. Somewhere up here, right there, there's one on that, what's left of that brace. There's a few holes cut in the floor, looks like. We got some custom brackets here for some rear end setup. This does have a Ford 9-inch in it. Out of what? I don't know. Body mounts, another one here, and I believe there's one floating in there somewhere. And I found the back of the body. There's a body mount on the back of that cross member. Somebody welded in or riveted in a new rear cross member, so there's no body mount there. So I got all the bolts out of the cabin. This seat frame's actually bolted in and the tracks are stuck. So I didn't feel like messing with that to try to get that out. But I was able to get the bolt out here. There's one back here, 2 in the front. So there's 4 per side. Now we have to go to the front where I pulled the hood off. And now we can work on the core support. I think if we hook onto this core support, this feels pretty rigid. I think this should be a good pulling point. If we pull straight up, that should hold the whole nose. If we pull the car up level, I believe everything should stay put. So I feel pretty good about all that. So now we need to get this out. And unfortunately for Mr. Steering Column, it's gonna get snipped off right about there. So there are 2 bolts that were pretty fresh right here that hold the core support down. So I got those out and I cracked this loose. So this had like 60 foot-pounds of torque on it for the master cylinder, but you can probably tell by looking at that, and if you can see down in here, you might be able to figure out why the brakes don't work. So it's safe to say there's really no juice in there, so we're just gonna go ahead and snip that line. We're gonna push this car aside for right now. It's basically done, and we're gonna work on pulling the body off this 58. So we'll get this out of here. We'll bring our cart in here. It was set up for this car for a C2. We need to modify it to fit this C1 body. So here's the cart that split window was shipped with. And they cut the front off so that way they could transport it. But this was for the core support. This was the front, that was the back. So now we need to adapt this to fit this, which this is a completely different style body. The body mount setup was completely different. So we have some modifications to do. So the first thing I did is I printed out this sheet. I found this online, just a chassis check sheet basically with all the gauge holes. Make sure your chassis is square, or if you need to pull it or whatever, you're able to do that, or if you need to fix a section, it has these gauge holes and the body mounts that you can locate to make sure you do it right. And the dimensions that we care about the most are how far apart the body mounts are, side to side, from the center line of the chassis. We also care about how far away they're spaced. So conveniently, we already had all those numbers on here, minus the front one. We'll have to do some math for that one later. The other important thing is how high are the body mounts in this plane, because you can see on the C2 setup, they're at different heights. The back ones are significantly higher. And basically all I did is I went over to the body on the creeper. It'll be easier to demonstrate it like this, but I went to the top pedestal, pretend this is the chassis. I went to the top pedestal of the body mount and measured down to the ground. And just for demonstration purposes, I have a straight edge here, and you can see we're at like 19.25 in this setup here. Obviously your numbers are going to be different. What you're really looking for is a trend. So I took the measurement here, here, and at the back, and I got 14.75, 14.75, 14.5. Now I know the front's sitting a little low. I put a level on the chassis. I tried jacking up a little bit, and I'm going to run with 14.75 as my height for all of these. We'll figure out the core support after. But all these pedestals are too narrow. So what I need to do is cut all these off, and then I have some scraps and stuff we'll have to cobble something together. We'll measure out the center line of this, and we're gonna work everything from the center line out, especially because he has bolts set up in the center line of these. So I'm done making the modifications to the cart. I started at the back, made them the right width, and then from there, I based every one off of that. So they're all spaced accordingly, both length and width. And then I welded the front of the cart on, put some casters on it, and we have our readjusted front part of the cart as well. Now on a C1 Corvette, they have body mounts that are slightly inboard here, and we're only grabbing the outer ones with these posts. So since I don't throw anything away, I have these rockers, which are off of a split window that came to me on this cart that we're sending home. And I found if I just lay this across, it is basically the perfect size to go across, which is perfect because when we put the body of the Corvette on top of here, it'll land through the bolt hole and the belly of the car will land across this. Now this one is the reason why we changed them. It was whooped on and they're a little rusty, but they're good enough for what we're gonna use them for. And then I have this one, which we will put up front. Just happened to be literally the perfect length. And the front cross member or the front core support has 2 holes that are central. So this will just help us land it right in the middle. We won't have to worry about trying to guess or measure. We'll just plop it right down and drill holes, get it in place. So I think I'm gonna knock some of this ugliness off real quick and we will weld, at least tack weld, just so they're not moving, these in place. I have one more, the back one, we won't need it because the trunk's in the way. But at least this will help support the belly of the car because there's not a lot of steel in these bodies. So that'll help support it. Looks a little janky, but it'll work just fine. So officially, the chassis and the body are now separated, they're divorced, and they're never joining again. This is going to get, I believe, an SR3 chassis, and then this chassis is going to get customized and put underneath my C1. It does have a little bit of rust. You can tell someone replaced this cross member, and I did find there's a little hole here. So I think what I'm gonna do to build this chassis is build the body on it the way that it is, because I have a car that's in pieces, like everything else I build. I'll build the body, put a front end on it, and then I think I'll take the chassis apart, have it sandblasted. I'll do my rust repair, and I think I want to put C4 IRS and front suspension in it. So we have some plans, and I have to put new braces in here. They do make those, but everything appears to be in pretty good shape, actually, other than the fact that some things are hacked up, like holes for the exhaust. We got to just smooth some stuff in the X and cut off some extra brackets they added, and we'll be deleting all this front suspension. But overall, I'm happy with that. This went pretty well. We got the body off in one piece, and we didn't hurt it. I did have to open up the holes a little bit in the floor. I don't know if you can really tell. I opened them up just a little bit. There's one over there. And I wallered on all of them just a little bit because there's studs in these pillars from the way my customer made it. He had them sticking up, and some of them were tilted a little bit. All the measurements were right. They were in the right spot, but I just needed to cheat them the hole just over just a skosh, just so that way the pin would drop in. I still have to run bolts in all of them and nuts, and I have to drill some holes in the rocker here for a bolt to go through for the core support. Again, that's not anything too crazy. We'll just drill some holes, run some bolts in, call it a day. But you can see what the goal was here is that we were able to bridge this gap, make a nice little frame to hold this. Instead of just putting one pedestal and trying to position it perfectly, we could just have this one big thing and it'll touch a bigger contact. Same with the floor. You can see we're touching the body mount here. There's a pad that we're touching there. So we're supporting the floor the whole way across, and the same thing in the back. So I feel good about this. This thing is going across the United States, so I wanted to make sure we bolt this thing down. We want this thing to be solid, and I think I'm gonna add another caster in the middle just to make sure we support this thing so it doesn't start bouncing, because it's kind of a long span of steel. So I think an extra caster in there will keep it supported. But overall, guys, this is a pretty simple cart. It took quite a few hours to build and execute, to move everything. If you're starting with raw steel, maybe it'd be a little bit easier. But if you're wondering, one thing I didn't tell you is that this is 4 feet wide, these rails. So these are 2x2 steel. If you want to do this for a C2 or C3 or C1, get yourself some steel, get it about the length of the whole car, set it up at 48 inches wide, get yourself some casters. I like a little bit taller caster just because they're easier to swivel. They kind of cooperate a little more. And then for every single body mount, all you have to do is space it out from the rail just a little bit if you need to, because every one can be a little bit of a different spacing. So 48 inches worked pretty well. I went from the top of the rail up 14 inches, and all I did to check that was I measured from the chassis to the ground in each body mount. And on a C1, every single one is at the same height. C2 and C3 are different. The backs are a lot higher, but on a C1, they're all the same height the whole way across. So that was pretty straightforward. So that is it for this, and we have kind of custom transmission cross member with some weirdness going on here. All right, I got to put all these tools away and put all these parts that go with the car back in the car, and this thing is about ready to go home. But that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. This car is basically ready to go home, other than just throwing parts in it. And that's all we're going to do with this one. We just got the chassis and checked the car out, basically. So a big shout out to my customer, Mark. Thanks for the chassis. We're going to be putting it to good use. It's not perfect, but it's perfect for what I'm looking for. So now we gained another valuable piece to the puzzle to build our C1 Corvette. We're slowly gathering parts, and eventually we'll have enough parts to build a whole car. So I got a lot of work to do, and I'll catch you guys later.